Hi, my name's David Rodwin, and this is The Life. So I just saw the touring production of Fela, a musical conceived of and directed by Bill T. Jones. If you've never heard of it before, it was actually on Broadway, though it didn't have a very long run, and it is about the life of the title character, Fela, who is a real person who was in Nigeria and who basically invented what came to be known as Afropop. And I have to say, if you ever have a chance to go and see Fela live with the touring production that's going out there right now, see it. There is an incredible cast. Fela Anikulapo was played by Sar Nauja, and he was amazing. His lover was played by Michelle Williams from the group Destiny's Child, and his mother was played by the vocal powerhouse Melanie Marshall. And it is a radiant, vibrant production that is just intoxicating. It literally gets you on your feet, dancing in front of your seats and singing along, and simultaneously it never touched me emotionally in any capacity. Now let's break this down. How is it such an amazing production and it didn't touch or move me at all? Let's start at the beginning. The actor playing Fela comes out near the beginning and he is there on stage the entire show. However, he spends most of the show narrating his own life. The conceit for the show is that we are the audience for the final performance in the space where he used to perform in Nigeria. And it's a fine enough frame to use for a theatrical device. But when Bill T. Jones put the show together, he knew that most people would not know about the life and times of Fela and the invention of Afropop and how it all came to be. So the entire first 45 minutes is just setting the groundwork for this guy's life. He actually even stops almost an hour into it and turns to the audience and says, "Well, now we can begin." And in some ways, that was a very accurate statement. To be honest, sometimes I really felt like it was a history lesson with fun songs interspersed in between. And I think it could have been so much more compelling. Now, luckily, the leading actor is a deeply charismatic performer who has amazing skills vocally as well as engaging with the audience. He makes sure the audience knows that this has to be a participatory type of event. This is not your regular Broadway musical where you sit there and you just listen and you go, "Oh, that was a nice song, clap, clap, clap." Instead, he literally makes us sing along, he makes us talk back to him, and he even has us dance. But while we fell in love with the character of Fela and we were deeply impressed with the actor who is embodying him, and the songs were great and the dances were great, the problem was he told us about his life. He never showed us his life. And part of the result of that is that as an audience member, I never really feared for him and I never really had any great hopes for him. And it's funny, while a good portion of the narrative deals with Fela's traveling the world and having political epiphanies about the injustices that are being done to his people in Africa and Nigeria specifically, I feel like it just barely touched the surface of that. A good deal of Act 2 deals with what happened to his mother. When she does finally die, Fela goes into a fever dream of sorts, and that is one of the most extraordinary set pieces of the entire show. While following in the footsteps of the dream sequence in Oklahoma and West Side Story, it is completely unique, different, and terrifying in a way like I have rarely seen on stage. It's disorienting in a wholly effective manner that feels like some kind of bizarre dream that's hard to describe after you've woken. But the strange thing is, in terms of the narrative, I wanted to know what happened after that. And the show actually ends at this point where it feels like it's just begun. And that's partially because I felt like the narrative didn't begin until almost an hour into the show. The other interesting thing is the function the songs take. And instead of moving the action ahead, the songs in some ways are incidental, at least to the narrative. They're not incidental to the entire atmosphere, and they're absolutely necessary. And they're very effectively done, but they don't actually add to my emotional engagement with the characters. Now, one great thing about this musical is that the band is authentic, and you don't always have that in Broadway musicals that take other people's music and appropriate it for the stage. Luckily, this band is killer. It is kick-ass, it's on stage the entire time, and they jam. They're the real thing. They're not Broadway musicians who are playing charts. These guys are playing from their hearts so you can feel it in your bones. The interesting thing that many people might not know is that this style of direct address and presentational aesthetic in the theater is something that Bill T. Jones was very much a part of in the dance theater community going back to the 80s. He and Arnie Zane were two of the pioneers of dancers talking. talking about their own life stories. So it's a very natural transition for Bill T. Jones to make his first Broadway show as a director in this kind of a production. And yet, because there was artifice involved, because Fela was not there himself on stage, because he died in 1997, it loses some of its effectiveness. When Bill T. Jones and Arnie Zane and other choreographer monologists like David Rusev would get on stage at BAM and talk about their life personally, it was deeply moving because it was real. And here, when you have an actor, no matter how talented, trying to embody someone else, it just doesn't have the same power. It's still worth seeing the show, and if you don't know Afropop, you should definitely listen to some great links here and here. But in the end, while I was thrilled by the pageantry and the exuberance of the performers, I was left wanting. I'm glad Bill T. Jones brought this story to life, but I hope Bill T. Jones tries again to make another crossover alternative musical, because he's up to something different and it's refreshing, and hopefully next time he can just make me feel something deeply. My name's David Rodwin, and this is The Life. So I just saw the world premiere staging of The Gospel According to the Other Mary. It was composed by John Adams and directed by Peter Sellers, with a libretto that was compiled by Peter Sellers of multiple authors, many of them women.